responsible.
Tough crowd.
Okay, so thanks very much for coming today. We've got a bit of a team here. We've got Jeff over there, and Rowan, and Jay, and John's coming. He's our marshalling guy. And we've got some activities for you that we'll go into a bit later on. So who here's done driver training before? Yeah, what sort of days have you done?
I think we did one here at
Okay.
school. That was a while ago.
School?
But the one
I
at
thought you were
Willowbank.
looking pretty young, but
Yeah,
geez, go you.
I graduated last year. And the one at Willowbank.
Okay,
Yeah, but we didn't do much of the road wet or anything.
right, okay. Now, you're going to find this very different to what you think driver training would be. So essentially we're going to go into why we look and we don't see, how our brains play tricks with the information, a lot of technique. We're going to teach you how to sit, how to use your hands, how to get your eyes to start working. It's all about decision making and planning. So what we're going to go through now is a bit of the theory into what we're going to do, and then we've got 4 hours in here where we're going to push you guys fairly hard because our time's fairly limited. And then we're going to dash up to Sirame Winery. Now that's not a demonstration in how you can drink and drive and the effects of before and after. Traffic insurance won't cover that anymore. But what we'll do after we have lunch there is we're going to split you up into 2 groups. In one group we're going to take you on a road drive behind Mount Cotton through all the hills to show you how to apply what we've learned here into the environment you're looking at. And then the second group will stay with me. We're going to go into a bit of vehicle maintenance, road safety, a bit more theory on this sort of stuff, and just bring the whole thing together, and then we'll swap for the afternoon. So if there's any questions, anything you need to know, there's no such thing as a dumb question, only the question that you don't ask. So just feel free to have conversation and have as much fun as you can. Toilets are here, don't get women and men mixed up. We didn't know. And there's a drinking fountain there, and if there's water, just let us know. So any questions? All good? No worries. Okay, so essentially, why are we here? No one will admit that they're a bad driver. In fact, when I first started with BMW, the first thing we were told is there's only 2 things you can't tell someone. One, you can't criticise their driving, the other one is you can't criticise their loving, because they're the only 2 things that we teach ourselves how to do. So everyone thinks that they're a sensation behind the wheel. And I mean, how often do we go for a drive and we criticise everyone we're sharing the road with? And not once do we stop to think, I wonder if they're criticising me, I wonder what's going on. And then who here knows someone that's had a crash?
Yep.
Have they ever admitted it was their fault? There's always some weird circumstance that comes into it as to why they justified the fact that their car is a mangled piece of wreck. I know a guy once when they were making the M1, he got his car crushed between a truck and the concrete barriers. And I said to him, who owned the truck? And he went, I don't know. What was the registration on the truck? I don't know. What was the name on the trailer? I don't know. When the thing's 80 feet long, weighs 60 tonne, and you don't know any information about it, and you're complaining about a crash. So that's what it says. It doesn't matter what goes on. Everyone's got their theory as to why it crashes. So the thing that we want to go into is how we actually create these situations, because every driver creates their own crash. You see it all the time, and that's what we're going to learn into, how when confronted with any particular circumstance, there's 2 decisions to make, and we'll all innately choose the wrong decision that engineers the very crash that we're trying to create. So these stats are pretty compelling, because while the road toll is actually dropping, we're having more accidents per person per kilometre travelled than we've ever had in our history. And it's because, we'll go into this after lunch, we've addressed everything. We've improved the engineering in our vehicles, unbelievably. In fact, Top Gear did a show once where they got I think it was a Focus that won the World Rally Championship 5 years before, and they got the brand new factory version of it, and they ran it through a whole series of tests on their UB track. And you know, the road car version was actually faster than the race car version on every comparison they put it through. That's how far the engineering in cars has improved. The byproduct of that is it actually isolates us from all the information that made us slow down back in the day. So if you think, who remembers when Holden came out with RTS suspension? Who recalls that? Yeah? There's a few old folks amongst us, yeah. Do you know why they came out with it? Do you know how it came about? The previous chief of Holden, the guy responsible for the Taranas and all that, his road safety philosophy was to make the cars handle so badly it scared people into slowing down. So then this new guy comes out, I think his name was Hannenberger, who says, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And the question was, how do they fix the problem without admitting that they were badly engineering their cars? So they blame the tyres. So they tune the suspension, shocks, springs, bushes, all that sort of stuff, so it actually stopped and turned at the same time and said, look how good we are, we fix this particular problem. But this is the cost, and this is what we're going to look into. Essentially, it's coming down to how our brains are processing the information. So everything that we want to do naturally in our normal environment that kept us alive and safe is now creating and compounding the risk because we introduce speed and our brains can't process speed. So to give you an example of that, who here's noted when you've been doing 100 k's down the road and you slow down for an area at 60 k's, a built up area, it feels so slow you want to hop out of your car and walk.
Yeah.
Can you ever walk at 60 k's? I can't even. Actually, yeah, that's a long achievable feat that was never going to be met. But then 60 k's feels normal. So who here watches car racing? Yeah? Anyone else watch car racing? Cars come into the pits, they change drivers, then the commentators talk about how the driver gets back in the window. So it takes him half a lap to 3/4 lap to be back in the window and back up the pace. What's really happening is they go from being stationary to this sudden onslaught of speed, and their brains are trying to recalibrate it back. So that first half of that, they're driving by their braking mark. I brake here, I turn here, I accelerate here, and then as it starts to make sense, suddenly they can feel the car, suddenly they start working with the car and bang, there's their lap time. And that's what's really going on. So where it's going wrong is actually how we're digesting information. So who thinks that we see in this big motion picture that is just a live report? Who thinks that's how it works? Yeah? No? No? Yeah? No? Actually, no. Our brains are taking snapshots. They're taking pictures all the time. And they're connecting the picture. And the catch is we don't see what you think we're seeing. We actually see back to front, upside down, and inverted, and in black and white. And then that comes to another section of the brain that creates a picture. So I'm going to pick on the guys, but this is a question for the girls. You girls got partners? Relationships? How often are your partners in trouble with you? Say they've gone to get food out of the fridge. They start laughing straight away. Don't even have to explain it. You take the mickey out of them. You call it the boy look, yeah? Guys, this is the best relationship advice you're ever going to get in your life. Here's what's going on. Our brain's actually picking and choosing what it thinks it should see based on what it expects to be there. And the reason males have more of an issue with it than females is females have more than twice the photoreceptor cells in their eyes than what us guys do. That's why they see more with a single glance. So they've proven in their research that if it's not what the guy wants to see, where he wants to see it, surrounded by what he expects to see, surrounded by with the colouring, the packaging and the wording and the labelling facing the direction he wants to see it in, can't see it. Now, do you want to know something that's really, really sad? I live on my own, so I've got no one to blame. I'll go to cook dinner at night time, I'll open the fridge and I know it's there because I used it the night before, and I'll tell myself everything on every shelf. I'll move things around because I know this stuff's going on, right? Eventually I'll give up, I'll close the door, I'll open it, and suddenly it's there. It's like the dude that turns the light on and off, he's playing with my food. That's how powerful this thing is. So the point is if we've got this much of a challenge in a non-threatening, inanimate environment of just trying to get some damn food out of the fridge, how much of a challenge do you think we're going to have in a dynamic, continuously evolving environment? And that's where it goes wrong. People don't hop into a car to crash. In fact, Jeff and I have taught halfway around the world doing this sort of stuff. With all the big brands, Jeff used to do anti-terrorist training for the police and that sort of thing. Not once have we hopped in with someone who hopped into the car with the intention on having a crash. But we've sat beside so many people where we just thought, just want this thing to end. Because by the time we could get through to them and then say this is what's going on and then slow them down and then put process in place and then create some technique and then bring it all together, suddenly they were going faster while it was easier and it was safer. So what's the difference between the track environment, and Jay here, he used to race with the names that you see on TV. What's the difference between the track environment and the road environment that you're driving?
It's unpredictable.
Yeah, the road environment's actually far more complex. On the track, you go there, you set up, you go practice, you adjust the car, you go practice, you chase the car to the track to the car, you go qualify, which is where you're actually starting to get serious, and then the money's on, right? On the track, on the road, it's coming from 4 directions at once with no one thinking, no one planning, no one understanding the dynamics or the change in the environment, and everyone's just reacting to what goes wrong. And it's all coming down to, it's like taking the operating system out of a PC and trying to put it into a Mac and wondering why you keep crashing. It's exactly what's happening. So The other thing that happens is not only do males and females see differently, and not only do our brains think and process differently, as we introduce speed, we create adrenaline. And adrenaline is a natural fail-safe mechanism. So what happens is it takes our big picture peripheral vision down to tunnel vision to focus on the threat. And you can see here the difference between the picture on the right where you can see the full picture and the picture on the left where you can only see the dog. It's completely different. Do you think that the person on the left, their decision-making process would be different to the one on the right? So when they talk about driver behaviour, what's really going on is when everything's wrong with the driver, it compromises the window of information. If the window of information is compromised, the decisions are compromised, and that's your risk. So think about it another way. If you're walking down the footpath and the concrete's busted, what's the first thing that you look at? Broken concrete. Don't want to get hurt. Next thing you look at, safe way around the concrete, so you don't get hurt. And it's not until you're beside or past the threat that you pick your eyes up and you look forward to the next challenge, and the average person looks 3 to 5 metres ahead. Okay? What we really did was sacrificed our big picture peripheral vision, compromised our tunnel vision, and revert back to our close range of vision, which is what kept us safe. But now we're introducing speed, and our brain's not processing that. So what it manifests it to is we want to look in front of the car, but the car's now here because of speed. So we're reacting to what's gone wrong. This is loss of control. Loss of control isn't when you get understeer or oversteer or the thing jumps or the brake locks. That's a crash. You can't teach someone how to control what they've already lost control of. Loss of control is when the car's here and you're madly trying to keep up. Who here travels long distances with fatigue, with long distances in work? Well, fatigue is the overload of information. Have you ever wondered how an office worker can't do their 38 hours in the week, jump in the car and take their family on a holiday without killing them? Why does the road toll go up every holiday? But then how can we have people whose profession it is to drive for 12 hours at a time and nothing ever goes wrong? It's because the eye's in the wrong place. It accelerates the intake of information. That creates the fatigue, and everything we want to do naturally to protect us from that is actually starting to engineer the risk in the crash. So what I want you to do is all point at the centre of that circle with your right index finger. So just point at that, close your left eye, open it, close your right eye. Moves, doesn't it? For every 100 metres you're looking down the road, you can be up to 3 metres from where you think you placed the car compared to where it's actually positioned, because we've got a parallax error in our eyes. They call it the dominant eye effect. And what do you think actually influences this? What do you think drives it? It even comes down to how your feet are positioned on the pedals. It comes down to what you're using with your legs, how your balance is coming from. It comes down to how your hands are interacting with the wheel. So when Jeff takes you out on the slalom, what he's going to do is get you to look all the way through to the end. You'll follow those cones, you'll see 2 cones up on the bank. You're only going to look at those 2 cones on the bank. He's going to put a technique into place where you're always pulling down. So you treat the steering wheel like a balance bar and you're always pulling